A woman doesn't usually fear losing a man at the moment she hurts him. In that moment, there's distance, justification, emotion, and often relief. The real fear doesn't arrive during the argument, the silence, or even the breakup. It arrives later, quietly, when the noise is gone and the consequences begin to settle. That's when the mind starts replaying moments that once felt ordinary, but now feel irreplaceable. Not the dramatic highs, but the calm, the consistency, the safety that didn't demand attention because it never threatened to leave. And by the time that realization forms, the damage is already done. What most people never talk about is that hurting a good man doesn't create immediate regret. It creates delayed awareness. A good man doesn't respond with chaos or revenge. He responds with distance, withdrawal, with silence. And silence is terrifying when you realize it's permanent. In the beginning, it feels like freedom later. It feels like loss, without a solution. Because unlike excitement, trust does not regenerate on demand. Once it's broken, it doesn't return simply because time has passed or apologies have been offered. This conversation isn't about blaming women or excusing men. It's about understanding emotional patterns that unfold after choices are made. A good man in this context isn't perfect. He's consistent. He's emotionally present. He invests without keeping score. He chooses stability over drama and effort over avoidance. And because of that, his value is often recognized only in his why fear comes after, not before absence. When he's present, his reliability feels normal. When he's gone, it becomes rare. The truth is, when a good man is hurt deeply enough, he doesn't chase closure. He rebuilds internally, and that's where the fear begins. Because what follows is not anger. It's acceptance, not bitterness, but boundaries. And once a man reaches that point, he doesn't return as the same person. The emotional access that once existed is gone. And for the person who caused the hurt, there's no clear way back. This matters because emotional pain doesn't end when a relationship ends. It evolves, it changes form. For men, it often turns into discipline, distance, and growth. For women who cause the damage, it often turns into reflection, comparison, and quiet regret. Not always regret for the relationship itself, but for the version of themselves they were when they had something they didn't fully understand. So, this video isn't about teaching anyone how to win someone back. It's about revealing the 3 fears that tend to surface after a good man is lost. Not immediately, not publicly, but privately, in moments of silence, in future relationships, and in the uncomfortable realization that some connections don't come twice. What many women don't realize in the moment is that what they are walking away from isn't a man. It's a feeling, and not the exciting kind, not butterflies or fear. Number 1, realizing emotional safety is gone intensity or emotional spikes. It's the feeling of safety. Emotional safety rarely announces itself. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't create chaos or drama. It feels calm, predictable, and steady. And because of that, it's often misunderstood as boredom. When a good man shows up consistently, listens without defensiveness, and provides stability without controlling, it can feel uneventful compared to the emotional highs that come from uncertainty. In the moment, the absence of tension feels like a lack of chemistry, when in reality, it's the presence of trust. The fear begins later, after the relationship has ended and time has passed. It starts quietly, usually not as regret, but as comparison. A new connection feels exciting at first. New energy, unpredictability, intensity, but slowly patterns emerge. Inconsistency shows up. Emotional unavailability surfaces. Words stop matching actions. And that's when the memory of safety returns. Not as nostalgia, but as contrast. The realization isn't I miss him. It's I don't feel as secure as I once did. That's when the fear takes shape. The fear that what was lost wasn't replaceable. A good man offers emotional shelter, not perfection, not control, not submission, but reliability. He's someone whose presence lowers anxiety instead of increasing it. And that kind of presence is rare. Most people don't realize how rare it is until they experience its absence repeatedly after hurting a good man. The fear isn't loneliness, it's the awareness that calm love might not come silence and the beginning of regret again in the same form. That emotional safety, being able to speak freely, to disagree without punishment, to be imperfect without being abandoned becomes a reference point. And once that reference point exists, everything else feels unstable by comparison. What makes this fear more complex is that it can't be easily articulated. There's no dramatic story to tell, no villain to blame, just the quiet understanding that excitement fades, but safety endures. And when safety is gone, the nervous system remembers. It remembers how it felt to exhale, to not overthink every message, to trust consistency. That's why the fear deepens over time, because each new experience reinforces what was lost rather than replacing it. This fear isn't about wanting the man back. It's about fearing the absence of what he represented. A good man doesn't just fill a role in a relationship. He sets a standard for emotional regulation and mutual respect. After that standard is established, chaos becomes harder to tolerate. Even when chaos feels familiar or exciting, it also feels draining, and that creates internal conflict. The mind tries to justify past decisions while the body recognizes what it once had. The most painful part of this fear is its permanence. Emotional safety isn't something you can demand from another person. It's something that's built slowly through consistency and trust. And once broken, it doesn't reset with time. The fear is realizing that what felt ordinary was actually exceptional, and that exceptional things once lost don't simply return because they're fear number 2, knowing she can't replace you desired. The second fear doesn't arrive all at once. It unfolds gradually, often in moments that feel small but carry weight. It begins when a woman realizes that some damage cannot be undone, not because there was no apology, but because trust doesn't respond to words once it has been deeply broken. At first, there's often a belief that time will soften things, that emotions will cool, that distance will create perspective and make repair possible. But what happens with a good man is different. When he is hurt beyond a certain point, he doesn't explode or seek revenge. He withdraws internally, and that withdrawal is irreversible. A good man doesn't detach emotionally as a tactic. He does it as a form of self-preservation. Once he realizes that staying open costs him his peace, he closes the door quietly. From the outside, this can look like maturity or acceptance, but internally, something fundamental has shifted. The emotional access that once existed is gone, and that's when the fear begins. The fear of knowing that no matter what is said or done, the version of him that loved freely will never return. Apologies feel different when they arrive after detachment. They land on a surface that no longer absorbs them. There is politeness instead of warmth, calm instead of connection. And that calm can be more unsettling than anger. Anger suggests there's still emotional energy. Calm suggests resolution. The fear isn't that forgiveness won't be granted. It's that forgiveness no longer changes anything. Being forgiven doesn't restore closeness. It simply removes hostility. And for someone hoping for redemption, that distinction is painful. What makes this fear linger is the awareness of being remembered, not for the love shared, but for the wound caused. Why comparison creates pain. A good man often carries his lessons quietly. He doesn't retell the story with bitterness, but he remembers. And knowing that you occupy a place in someone's life defined by hurt rather than harmony is difficult to sit with. There's no action that erases that imprint. You can grow, change, reflect, but the memory remains part of his emotional history. This fear deepens when there is an attempt to reconnect and the response is neutral. Not rejection, not anger, just distance. That distance confirms what words don't need to say. The door is closed. And unlike dramatic breakups where emotions cycle back and forth, this kind of ending offers no illusion. There's no on and off pattern, no emotional leverage, just finality. The realization sets in that the opportunity to repair existed once and it was missed. The hardest part of this fear is that it offers no path to relief. You can't force trust back into existence. You can't convince someone to feel safe again once safety has been violated deeply enough. And knowing that you were the reason that safety was lost creates a form of guilt that doesn't resolve easily. It doesn't scream. It sits quietly in the background, resurfacing in moments of reflection and in future relationships. This fear is not about wanting the relationship back. It's about confronting the permanence of consequences, about realizing that some connections only exist once in a lifetime, and once they're damaged beyond repair, all that remains is fear to 3 facing her own choices awareness. Awareness that timing matters, that effort delayed is often effort denied, and that some lessons arrive only after the door they would have saved has already closed. The third fear is the one that lasts the longest because it doesn't come from memory or imagination. It comes from reality. It arrives the moment she sees him again, or hears about him, or realizes through silence that he has moved on in a way that no longer includes her at all. Not bitter, not broken, not chasing, just different, calmer, stronger, more self-contained. And in that moment, something becomes painfully clear. He didn't collapse after the loss. He rebuilt. What makes this fear so unsettling is that it removes the comforting narrative that hurting him ruined him. There's a strange sense of relief people sometimes feel, believing their actions left a permanent mark, that they mattered enough to derail someone's life. But seeing a good man grow after pain dismantles that illusion. His progress becomes a mirror. It reflects not what was lost, but what was outgrown. And realizing that you were not the center of his story, but a chapter he closed is difficult to accept. A good man processes pain internally. He doesn't broadcast his healing. He channels it into structure, boundaries, and growth. Over time, he becomes more grounded, less reactive, and more selective. And that selectiveness is the source of the fear. Because once he has learned to protect his peace, access to him is no longer automatic. What was once freely given self-respect changes. The dynamic now requires alignment. The emotional availability that used to feel endless is now guarded, and there is no resentment in that, only clarity. The fear intensifies when there is no emotional reaction left. When conversations, if they happen at all, are polite but distant. When there's no longing in his voice, no curiosity, no lingering attachment, that neutrality signals something final, emotional. Relevance has ended. Being disliked still implies presence. Being ignored implies resolution. And that realization cuts deeper than rejection. It means he no longer measures his worth or direction through her perception. What lingers is not jealousy, but insignificance. The understanding that he became stronger without her input, approval, or presence. That the pain she caused did not define him. It refined him. And in that growth, she no longer holds a meaningful place. This is difficult because it contradicts the belief that love once shared creates permanent emotional access. In reality, access is sustained through care. Once care is violated, access is revoked. This fear doesn't disappear because it resurfaces in future relationships. When she notices herself comparing emotional safety, maturity, or consistency, his presence reappears not as longing, but as a benchmark. And knowing that she may never again hold that position in his life, that she may only ever witness his growth from a healing without explanation distance, creates a quiet, enduring ache. The most painful part of this fear is its finality. There is no dramatic ending, no confrontation, no emotional resolution. Just the steady awareness that he moved forward, not because of her, but in spite of her. And in doing so, he found peace for the one who caused the hurt. That peace is both admirable and haunting because it confirms that what was lost was not just a relationship, but the chance to grow alongside him. Some losses don't announce themselves with noise or drama. They reveal their weight slowly over time through comparison, silence, and reflection. Hurting a good man doesn't always feel significant in the moment because good men don't punish, chase, or create chaos. They withdraw, they learn, and they move forward. And by the time the impact of that loss is fully understood, there is nothing left to negotiate with, only acceptance. This isn't a story about blame or about who was right and who was wrong. It's about awareness, about understanding that certain kinds of love are quiet. And because they are quiet, they are easy to undervalue. Emotional safety, trust, and consistency don't demand attention. They final truth. Value is felt in absence only demand respect. And when that respect is broken, the consequences are not loud. They are permanent. For men watching this, understand this clearly. Your value is not measured by who stays when you tolerate disrespect, but by who remains when you maintain your boundaries. Becoming distant after being hurt is not weakness. It is self-preservation. Growth after pain is not revenge. It is clarity. You don't owe access to anyone who did not protect your peace. For women, the truth is just as important. Not every lesson comes with a second chance. Some people enter your life to show you what stability feels like, not to stay forever. And recognizing that too late is one of life's quiet regrets. Not because love ended, but because something rare was mishandled. The truth no one talks about is this. Good men don't leave behind scars. They leave behind standards. And once those standards are set, they don't disappear. They follow both people forward. One is growth, the other as reflection.